It is Saturday, 27th of February 2021, and it's definitely a good sign that spring is on the way that before recording this, I had to shut the window to shut out the sounds of kids playing in the park opposite. One of the most natural sounds you can hear, children expressing themselves the way nature intended. And doesn't that speak to the evil, psychopathic nature of the control system behind this scamdemic, that when the whole thing kicked off, the shit show, about a year ago, one of the first things that was done throughout the country was children's play parks were cordoned off, and they used tape to prevent access to many of the items in the park. It's one of the most natural expressions of human behaviour, just association, social contact with others, and actually the freedom of association is a natural human right. We'll get on to more of that shortly. Last night, here in the UK, we had a broadcast on the so-called news from the so-called Queen of England. Well, Germany, but you know what I mean. Only problem was, it wasn't her. We were told that the Queen, who normally only addresses the nation at Christmas, although it's probably recorded in about October, and never normally feels to speak up about any other issues, has felt so strongly about the rollout of COVID vaccines that she felt compelled to jump on a Zoom call, because that's entirely natural for all 94-year-olds to go on a Zoom call with 4 or 5 other people. You know, they do it all the time. And so we had this broadcast which purported to be the Queen, reinforcing how important it is for everyone to take their COVID vaccine. And talking about how you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for other people. It's an act of selflessness. In other words, if you don't do it, you are selfish. So isn't it rich that a lecture on selfishness should come from somebody who, for decades, has hoarded unfeasible amounts of wealth, said to be in the trillions, which, if distributed elsewhere, could eradicate all poverty, all homelessness, all starvation, everywhere in the world overnight. And when you get into the history of the family, the bloodline that she represents, and you imagine the obscene, disgusting, disgraceful amount of wealth that's been kept by that particular family, it just becomes unthinkable that anyone would have the audacity and the hypocrisy to try and lecture others about being selfish. Also, lest we forget, this is a woman, if it is indeed a woman, we'll get on to that, with 2 sons, well, at least one of which has been embroiled in scandals involving known paedophiles. All right, well, it's not just one, it's 2. Let's throw Prince Charles into the mix with Prince Andrew, because Prince Charles, as well as allegedly having suffered sexual abuse at the hands of Lord Louis Mountbatten, the cousin of his father, Prince Philip, who became such an embarrassment to the royal family and the establishment that they had to have him removed by having his yacht blown up and blaming it on the IRA at the time in 1979, when in fact, by all accounts, it was a British military MI6 sting operation, because Mountbatten's activities had become such an embarrassment and he was being so indiscreet that even by their sick standards, he was becoming an embarrassment and he had to be removed. So Prince Charles, we hear, suffered at the hands of Mountbatten sexual abuse. But we do know that Prince Charles was a close personal chum of Jimmy Savile, well-known serial paedophile, Satanist, necrophiliac by certain accounts, and probably so much more. Prince Charles maintained a personal friendship with Jimmy Savile. Jimmy Savile was a frequent visitor to Buckingham Palace. Go figure. So there are some unsavoury associations for a start. Then you have the Queen's other son, Prince Andrew, and his known associations with Jeffrey Epstein, child sex trafficker, paedophile, enabler of the world's elite and rich and famous to sexually abuse children, and probably so much more. The Queen has protected both of them, hasn't had anything critical to say about their conduct, hasn't apologised for them for turning them out, and she has the front to try and lecture other people about acts of selfishness when it comes to the vaccine. It's funny, isn't it? This vaccine really is pushing buttons. It really is getting people commenting who don't normally comment on such things. Just the other week, we had Sir, go figure. Who creates Sirs again? Oh, that's the Queen. Sir Elton John and Sir Michael Caine appearing in a commercial encouraging people to take up the vaccine. I've lost all respect I ever had for Michael Caine following that, I tell you. Short while before that, we had Sir Paul McCartney. Is it just me, or is there a pattern emerging here? Encouraging everyone to take the vaccine, saying he couldn't wait to get his. And at New Year, we had Sir, newly appointed just a couple of years ago, Ringo Starr, pushing the mask and pushing all the COVID regulations. So isn't it interesting how all these sirs just happen to reinforce the official line on everything whenever it's required? So as far as the Queen is concerned, we had her apparently pushing the vaccine on TV yesterday by way of a Zoom call in which she's smiling. First of all, when have you ever known the Queen to smile? Smiling indicates humanity. It indicates all your emotions are intact. And I think we know better when it comes to the Queen, don't we? Whatever your personal theory might be on her true nature. But she's not exactly known for her smiles and her jolly japes. And she's also not known for making announcements at any other time except Christmas, although in the past year you can't bloody keep her off TV. No, the thing about the broadcast last night is it wasn't the Queen, because it was one of the most blatant displays of CGI fakery that I've ever seen. Now, I'm by no means an expert in this. I have no technological knowledge when it comes to such things, but it was so bloody obvious to me that that was a faked image. I have seen the video that's been doing the rounds over the past year or so, where you've got a guy up on stage demonstrating how easy it is to create CGI fakery of a famous figure. And he's using George, Village Idiot Bush, Barack Obama as examples. He's also got Piers Morgan, Daniel Craig and various others. And he's showing just how you can literally put words into the mouths of these famous people, and you can manipulate an image of them to make it appear as if that person is actually saying those words. I mean, with the Queen yesterday, it's like they weren't even trying. The face was all distorted, it was the wrong shape, the words weren't syncing with the movements of the mouth, the voice wasn't right. As I say, she was smiling, she was answering way too quickly, speaking way too fast. If you study the way she does her Christmas messages, she takes a while to get a sentence out. It seems like she's considering every word before she says it. With this one, she was straight in there with her short, snappy, sharp replies. It just wasn't her. So this will lend credence to some of those who claim that we are continuing to live in some kind of a movie and that we are being shown that all is not as it should be, as a way of supposedly waking up the sleeping masses. Others will say that this is an indication that the Queen is just not there, wherever she is, if she's being held in captivity, if she has in fact died and we've not been told the truth about it. Whatever the case, it wasn't the Queen. And you can add to that the fact that they've been using a fake Prince Charles in interviews, a double, none too convincing, over the last year. And nobody knows where the hell Prince Phil the Greek, nobody really knows where he is. There have been photos that have emerged of him with his A-word black eyes, looking like a panda, you know, A-word, know what I mean? What could be causing that? And he's looking like an exhumed corpse, you know, he's looking like he was dug up from the grave about 3 days ago. And then you've got all the strange stuff with Harry and Meghan having been excommunicated from the royal family. William and Kate seem to have done a runner. It's all very strange stuff. Something is going on. I don't know what. I don't know what it ties into. I don't pretend to know. I'm just saying all is not as it seems on that front. And I'll just leave that thought there, because the main crux of this video, the main point that I wanted to get across, concerns the announcement this week from de Pfeffel, as I call him, Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Kamal, to give him his true and proper ancestral name. Boris Johnson to anyone else. So he came out on Monday and gave us his roadmap out of lockdown. Now, in my book, the only roadmap he should be concerned about is the one that shows us where the nearest gallows is, so that he can step up on there and pay the price for fraud, treason, genocide, crimes against humanity, domestic terrorism, malfeasance, sedition. That'll do for starters. Hancock to the left of him, Whitty to the right. And it'll be a 24/7 operation, because there's no shortage of those that deserve the gallows for all the crimes I've just mentioned. Not just those in government, but the head honchos of all these treasonous mainstream media organisations. These mouthpieces for these liars and these criminals that have been perpetrating all the fear-based propaganda and mind control that has led to the destruction of society. Who knows how many deaths, untold amounts of misery and suffering, none of which would be possible without their complicity. I saw a great meme on a sticker slapped on a bus shelter just this week. It was a surprise to me because it was in my hometown, and I thought I knew all the awake and aware people in this particular town. There are 5 of us, but evidently there are more, because none of us put this sticker up, and the sticker said, "Imagine, if you will, a pandemic so deadly it stops when you turn off your TV." It's like the old one about the Amish community. One Amish guy saying to another one, "Why do you think COVID doesn't affect us?" And the other guy says, "Because we don't have a TV." So all these traitors should pay the price for the harm and the damage and the loss that they have caused. But we had de Pfeffel, Johnson, outlining when we are allowed. Can you imagine? Imagine the hubris, the arrogance of someone thinking they have the right and the authority to tell others when and under what conditions they can go out, move around, see who they choose to see, have who they choose to have in their own homes. The very idea that anyone can dictate these things to anyone else is an affront to the laws of creation. It's certainly a violation of natural law. So there he is, giving us certain dates by which we're going to be allowed, permitted to do things. Phase 1 is the kids go back to school. Phase 2 is non-essential shops. Who gets to decide which shops are essential or not? They're pretty fucking essential to people that run them. They're pretty fucking essential to people that have spent their lives building up these businesses and have done no harm, so therefore don't justify being shut down in any way. Pretty fucking essential in that regard, don't you think? Then it's the opening up of cinemas, pubs, restaurants, cafes, outdoors, first of all, mind, from the 12th of April. And how much of a piss take is that? The 12th of April is the Monday after the 2-week Easter holiday for the kids coming out of school. In other words, parents of children of school age have 2 weeks over the Easter holidays where they've got to find things to do with their children. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, nowhere is open. Then, after the 2 weeks, when the kids go back to school, on that very day, then things start to open up again. Then you can sit outside and have a meal. Then you can have a drink and go to a cafe and do all these things. It's just a blatant piss take. They continue to mock us to our faces. And most can't see it. Then the next phase is the 17th of May, where you're allowed to have a drink or a meal indoors. And then we're told from the 21st of June, where do I know that date from? Oh yes, it's the summer solstice. From that date, everything is said to reopen again and all the restrictions go. Quite the coincidence that it all happens on a solstice, on a date very important in the occult calendar. Because when you study the dates that we've been given all the way since the start of the scamdemic, they all involve equinoxes, solstices, dates that are important in the pagan old world calendar, according to certain religious and mystery school factions. So that's what they're doing. They are betraying their true nature as dark occultists by doing everything by the dates. And a lot of this is mockery too, because the date on which masks were first mandated for wearing on public transport in England last year was the 15th of June, which is the date in 1215 in which the Magna Carta, addressing the British Constitution and the rights of living men and women within creation, was signed into being. On the anniversary of a date which recognises our inherent rights and freedoms under God, under creation, in the universe, they tell us we have to wear a bit of cloth over half our face. Straight Satanists, straight traitors to humanity, traitors to God, and an affront to creation itself, all of them. Those directing all of these actions, those in the know, in the shadows, and then the bagmen and the pathetic little foot soldiers, the lackeys, the Johnsons, the Hancocks, the Whitties, the Valences, the Raabs, the Shapses, those that do their bidding, either because they've been promised a big paycheck and a big pushback from Bill Gates. Ain't that right, Hancock? Ain't that right, Whitty? Or because their owners have the goods on them in terms of video recordings of them doing, you don't even want to think, some pretty major leverage. How else could you get so many people to do your bidding and all be on the same page at the same time? Especially when you look at the whole of the rest of the world and the fact that the so-called leaders of so many countries are doing the same thing at the same time. Must be the same kind of leverage and blackmail being held over all of them to get the job done in lockstep, you might say. There's a buzzword. So, one thing to note is the fact that Johnson and his merry band of psychopathic, demented, maniac goon freaks are not exactly noted for their adherence to truth and trustworthiness. So just because they've given us these dates and said that we can do such and such on whatever a date, doesn't mean they're going to stick to it. And they've already made the proviso that this is according to vaccination rates going the way they want them to, and the fact that they've been desperate enough to put out a CGI fake of the Queen to try and encourage people to take vaccines, suggests to me that that agenda is not exactly going as well as they would have liked, because there's a lot of public awareness of the true nature of vaccines, and this one in particular, gene altering, can't even be accurately described as a vaccine. And also a lot of public awareness of the true nature of that psychopathic abomination, Bill Gates, the eugenicist. Just look on any of Bill Gates' social media platforms or under any of his videos on YouTube or anywhere else. Read the comment section to get an accurate feel for what people at large are making of Bill Gates and his agenda. There's a lot of public awareness out there now. If not about anything else, then at least about that. So that's one condition of these lockdown dates coming into force. Another is that the virus stays below certain acceptable levels. So I wouldn't put it past them to be psychologically torturing us here. They've done it before. Remember? You can have 5 days at Christmas to have your friends and family round. How fucking dare they tell you who you can have round your own house, so long as you're causing no harm? Yet they did, and, you know, people went for it. So we were told 5 days, and then they went back on that, and it was like, sorry, no, you can only have 1 day now because the virus is out of control. And then we have to pay for it after that. Sorry, because everyone had their family round on Christmas Day, the virus is out of control, so now we've got to lock down for the next 3 months to stop the spread, flatten the curve. So they are liars, and they could well renege on those dates. But even if they don't, how dare they try and tell us what we can and can't do? The whole virus narrative is a scam. This has been proven so many times over now, I don't even need to reiterate it. And anyone who hasn't twigged this yet is never going to. There aren't still people out there who are yet to wake up. Anyone that is going to wake up to this scam already has. As I mentioned in my video the other week, you're not going to get people still that are going to go, hey, hang on. There's something not quite right about this virus. It smells a bit fishy to me, no matter how slow off the uptake they may be. So it's a big scam. And they do not have these rights when we've done no harm and we have not consented to our enslavement under Chinese-style communism, which is the mechanism that they're using to get this whole job done. You know, it's not the be-all and the end-all. And those of us that have studied this whole thing for more than 5 minutes know that it's a very long-standing plan. The New World Order Master Plan, straight out of the Georgia Guidestones, straight out of untold amounts of documentation from over the centuries, which tell of how the elite ruling class, as they see themselves, want to completely dominate and subjugate the rest of humanity, us useless eaters, us goyim, as they see us, and significantly reduce large swathes of the population. Communism is just the vehicle by which they're getting it done on this occasion. It's an infrastructure that's been in place. It worked very well in Soviet Russia. It's been working very well in China. The facial recognition system, the smart cities, the 5G grid, all of this. They've studied it. They've thought that is the means by which we can get these final pieces of the puzzle in place. It's the same thing as Freemasonry. You know, Freemasonry, I'm pretty sure, started out as a noble craft with well-meaning intentions, but it was hijacked and it was infiltrated and taken over by malevolent forces. And then the infrastructure that was in place within Freemasonry and all the knowledge and all the rituals were turned to the advantage of those that had infiltrated and taken it over. And that's what we've got here. Now, I keep an eye on a few normie Facebook pages from time to time. I like to go to them and I like to read the comments because it gives me an insight into how the average members of society are thinking. Because let's face it, us awake and aware types who are paying attention and have done the due diligence of researching things for ourselves, we are still in a significant minority. Not as much as we used to be, and it has to be acknowledged that vast numbers have clearly woken up over the past several months. And we can speculate as to what proportion of the population we now represent. Personally, I would be very encouraged to be able to think that we're somewhere near the 10% mark. If we're at 10% or somewhere close, we're doing well, in my book, compared to the way things used to be. I mean, they tell us that there's something like 66 million people in the UK. That's a lot of sixes. Quite the coincidence. So 10% of that would be 6.6 million people. It's quite a lot of people. 6.6 million awake and aware individuals. It's a whole lot better than it's ever been before. But we're still in the minority. And the majority are still of the belief, because they believe proven liars and criminals. They haven't quite twigged yet. They're of the belief that there's this deadly virus and it lives on pens, and it could jump off this pen at any time and go up your nostril and you're done for. But bit of cloth over your face, sorted. And they're of the belief that the way out of it is by injecting their veins with an unknown substance. They don't know what's in it. They don't know who developed it. They don't know what it's going to do. They don't know what the side effects are going to be, but they have faith. They'll still take it anyway. And they think that's the way everything can get back to normal. So I keep an eye on these normie Facebook threads to get a feel for how these people are thinking. And all the chat since Johnson made his announcement on Monday evening is of the nature of, oh, thank God. Oh, the end is in sight. Finally, we can get back to normal. Oh, I can't wait for this summer. We can start going to dance festivals again. We can start going to barbecues and going in pub beer gardens, having our friends round, going to rock concerts. Oh, thank God we can start doing all these things. And then every so often someone will jump on the thread and they'll say, oh, they're going to introduce vaccine passports and you're not going to be able to go to festivals and things like that until you can show that you've had the vaccine. And many of these people are saying, oh, well, if that's what it takes, I don't care. I'll take the vaccine, yeah. As long as I can dance again and see my friends and have a drink and enjoy a festival, I'll do it. That really is the way people are thinking. Nowhere on these chat threads do you find people getting outraged, getting mad at the fact we've had a year of our lives stolen from us, where we've not been able to go about our business the way we've chosen. We've had our freedom of movement, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of association, and if they get their way, our freedom of bodily integrity, all taken away from us based on provable lies. And all the information to prove that it is a lie is right there in the public domain and always has been, should these people exercise the due diligence and the care, enough care to actually look into these things. No talk of that. Just talk of, if I have to take the vaccine to be able to go and dance in a field again, I'll do that. So that's the way people are thinking. Those who have sought to take away our natural-born rights and freedoms from us must never be forgotten, and they must never be forgiven. Because what they have done, and the amount of hardship, loss, damage and death that their lies and their duplicity and their straight evil has caused is immeasurable, and it cannot go unpunished. And as I've said on one of these videos before, the danger is that as we slowly drift back towards some semblance of normality and get back some of these rights and freedoms, people are going to be so relieved that the nightmare seems to be all over or going in the right direction that they will be prepared to forgive and forget and think, oh, what a bloody nightmare it was, but I don't want to think about it anymore. I just want to get on with my life. No, not acceptable. It just goes to show what little appreciation of what rights and freedoms really are and where they come from these people have. They think rights and freedoms are the arbitrary dictates of these man-made entities called governments. That is not where rights come from. And governments, and no man, no woman, has the right to dictate what any other person must do with their lives, how they conduct themselves in their behaviours, so long as it's causing no harm. If there's no injured party, if no harm, loss or damage is being caused, it is a fundamental right in creation that nobody can take away from you. That's true rights. Those are real freedoms, and they come from the creator of this realm of existence and of everything. They come from creation itself. Governments are an affront to that. They're an affront to natural law and everything that is great and good and natural in creation. So few people still realise that. We've got a long way to go in getting people on board with these understandings. So what can't happen is Johnson and all the others are just allowed to continue on and come out with whatever other arbitrary dictates takes their fancy. I mean, supposing they give us the summer. Who doesn't think that when the autumn kicks in again and cold and flu season starts, just the same as it has every year for as far back as anyone can remember, when people start catching colds again in September, October, who doesn't think that's going to get seized upon as, sorry folks, the virus is back as a new mutant strain, so we're going to have to lock down again. So shut up your business just like last year. Either that, or that's going to be the point at which people start falling sick from the vaccines. According to some reports, there's a 3 to 6 month delay in terms of when the full detrimental health effects of these things are going to start to be felt. So we could have a scenario where in the winter, people are falling ill from a vaccine they took 6 months earlier. And there'll be no connection made. Nobody's going to be thinking, oh, the reason these people are getting ill is because they took a vaccine back in the spring. It will be blamed on a new mutant strain or some other such unscientific bullshit. And nobody will be making those connections. And then we'll be told, oh, we need more vaccines. People have got to take a second shot now to protect them against these new strains that are coming along. So that's what's in the pipeline. You know, these people are very predictable when you've been studying their methods for some time. They cannot be allowed to get away with it. They have committed genocide, treason, crimes against humanity, the very worst crimes it's possible to commit. And they must be held accountable. I, for one, as well as never forgetting, I'm never going to forgive. Because if there was any kind of real justice, real karmic judgment, in effect, demonstrably, in this realm of existence, they'd all be swinging from gallows. Because that used to be the crime for treason. You have the fucking audacity to sell out your people, to be a traitor to your land, to God, to creation itself, then you pay the ultimate price. You pay with your life. That's the way it used to be. That's the way it should still be. And in terms of forgiveness for those who have meekly, cowardly complied with this agenda, there won't be a whole lot of that coming from me either. Just being honest. All these people the virtue signalling COVID zealots that have not only been going along with all the bullshit regulations, but have been trying to enforce them themselves and trying to take things even further, calling you out for not wearing a mask, campaigning for lockdown to go on even longer. What is wrong with these absolute retards that they think so little of themselves? They've got so little self-respect. Never mind a complete lack of understanding of what rights and freedoms are. So their stupidity, their ignorance, their cowardice has been affecting the rights and freedoms of the rest of us who do not consent, never did, and were never asked about having our rights taken away. We choose to move around, associate with whoever we choose, undertake whatever actions we choose, so long as they cause no harm. Because there are those of us who know the difference between right and wrong. We know what constitutes right action. We know what harm is. And we actually take the personal responsibility not to commit any harm in our actions. And so long as we do that, we have a natural right to live our lives as we see fit. And none of these fucking zealots possess any kind of a right to tell us that we can't. I mean, I can imagine a scenario where Johnson, some way down the line, says,
"It's okay, folks. You don't have to wear a mask in public anymore, and you don't have to socially distance, and none of the COVID restrictions need to be in place, so we're lifting lockdown completely."
There are actually going to be retards who initially, when the government told them they've got to lock down because there's a deadly virus, would have said, "Oh, I trust the government. I'm going to do everything they say." Now that the government tells you you don't have to do these things anymore, now they're going to be like, no, it's too early. I don't feel safe. I'm keeping my mask on. I'm keeping my business shut down. I'm not going to have people round my house. No, it's too soon. I don't trust the government. So they'll trust them when they say there's a deadly virus, life has to stop, but they won't trust them when they say life can get back to normal again. That's how fucking idiotic and shameful and downright embarrassing these people are. And isn't it unfortunate that we have to be held in collective punishment with them and share a society with them? You used to be able to ignore these fucking morons. If you chose, you could just completely disassociate from them, let them do their thing, you could just do yours, you would never have to have any encounters with them. Not the case anymore. We are all in this together, aren't we? Unfortunately, not through any consent of ours. So never forget and never forgive. These traitors, the mainstream media ones, as far as I'm concerned, Piers Morgan, every bit as complicit as Boris Johnson. No difference. Both traitors, both deserve the same fate. All of them. Hancock, most loathed and detested man in Britain, and think of the competition there. Well, I use the term man very loosely for Matt Hancock. But all of them, they need to take the full karmic consequence of what they've chosen to do. Judgment needs to come for all of them. And I've got my own idea of what that should look like. Whether that comes to pass or not, who knows? Probably not. But what can't be allowed to happen is they just get away with it. That this whole thing just fizzles out and they don't get called upon to answer for what they've done. That would be unacceptable. From time to time, I like to read out emails that I get from people because I just feel the way they express things and the messages they put across, they really resonate with me. They really speak to me, and I feel that if I convey that to others through these videos, it's going to have the same effect on them. So somebody got in touch by email to make the following statement, and it's some really good food for thought, and I'll just read it out the way they wrote it. I hope people find some value in it. So this guy said, the thought is this: there has to be a reason why we, the relative few who can see so clearly what the majority cannot, are here at this particular time in the planet's history. I'll just repeat that. There has to be a reason. Because if there isn't, then it would all be a sick, cosmic joke. If God, the creator, source, all that is, whatever, had said to us, you're going to incarnate on Earth at a crucial time in its history when pure evil is taking over. You're going to be given the ability and the wisdom to see right through all these lies and these deceptions. With a relatively small number of others, you are going to acquire this knowledge and discernment, even though the vast majority will refuse to similarly do the same. But, having been given those gifts, there won't be a single thing you can do with them to change anything. You will become frustrated, angry, depressed, and at times helpless in the face of the mass insanity you see around you, and your life is going to be extremely miserable as a result. That just doesn't make any kind of sense to me. I don't know if we're here to actually win this war the psychopaths are waging on humanity, although I do still remain optimistic that this will happen, but equally it might just be that we are way showers. We are here to try and alert the generations that will follow, and you and me, or at least me, this guy says, won't see the battle won in our lifetimes. It may be that this is all just a lesson in the nature of what it is and what constitutes reality, and the corona bollocks is the classroom. Or it might be a spiritual test. It's how we face and deal with this evil that counts, not the end manifest physical result of standing up to it and, if necessary, going down fighting rather than submitting to slavery. It might just be another part of our soul journey, and our spirits are being honed and refined in the fire of this current ordeal. Which is why I think that even if it does turn out that we appear to have lost the fight, in the far bigger and far more important spiritual level, we will have proved ourselves worthy. Whatever, there has to be a reason why we're here. And whatever that reason, I will continue to hold the line to the very best of my mental, physical and spiritual ability. I can do no other. And he concludes by saying, and to the masses waking up, I've been very clear from the outset, a year ago, that this is the last chance for those who refuse to wake up after 9/11. This is the last chance for those who refused to look up and see the sky daily choked by chemtrails. This is the last chance for those who refuse to disengage from the jackanory mainstream media and who insist on still believing that the government cares about them. This is it. They won't get another chance after this. And those, I think, are some very profound words worth reflecting on, thanks to the guy that sent them in. Now, I want to make a quick announcement, which is very topical, very timely, and very relevant to the audience, the listenership that I get for these videos. Many of you will already be familiar with David Noakes and his partner Lynn Thayer. David and Lynn worked on an alternative method of cancer treatment known as GC-MAF. This is a kind of holistic alternative to radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and all the horror stories coming out of the world of Big Pharma to treat cancer. By all accounts, GC-MAF is incredibly effective. It has been proven to cure multiple different cases of cancer. Now, you would think that two such people, having timelessly, selflessly given of themselves to develop such a method, might be recognised by way of some sort of accolade, some sort of award, some recognition of that kind. That may be the case in a sane, just, moral society. But we're talking about this one. In this society, in exchange for their gift to humanity, they found themselves imprisoned. They both got prison time in France. Just recently, Lynn has been let out on bail and I believe is back in the UK and now has a legal case to fight to prevent things from being taken further. As such, she has legal costs to cover, and she's, to put no finer an expression on it, she's broke and doesn't have the means to be able to support herself in this case. And I think David's scenario is very similar. So there is an appeal underway to raise funds by way of public donations for these two very fine people, David and Lynn, who have found themselves the victim of this sick, diseased, evil, immoral society in which we live, where you can get punished for trying to help people. So I think there are a few places and a few people who are up on this appeal. UK Column, I believe, shouted it out just recently. There's a few other people drawing attention to this appeal, and I'm happy to be doing the same. I met David Noakes last year at the Questioning History event. Actually, it was December 2019 when I think about it, when he was a guest speaker there. He was clearly a very troubled man. Who wouldn't be, with the stresses of what he'd already been through. He'd already been to jail by that point. I also met him at one of the alternative view conferences put together by Ian Crane. So here is an opportunity for anyone out there who is able to assist in the financial costs of Lynn with the legal case that she finds herself embroiled in. Now, she has specifically asked only for donations from people who can reasonably afford it without causing themselves hardship in the process. So if you don't have a lot and it's going to leave you short, she's saying, please don't give, only do so if you can comfortably. So I'll put the details of how you can donate to this appeal should you wish to in the show notes below, along with a whole load of other stuff that's going to appear in there this time round. But it's an opportunity to help these two great folks out and just stick two fingers up at the evildoers who wish to make an example of those who want to give of themselves and stand in right action and do what is morally right. There's the response to it. Okay, on to other things of a more housekeeping type nature. Whole lot of stuff to get through. As I mentioned, spring is in the air, and if this year is going to be anything like last year, it's going to be incredible. Spring 2020 was amazing, beautiful, long sunny days and evenings, and if we get more of the same, then it's only going to lead to more people taking it to the streets. For as long as this tyranny continues, for as long as these outrageous conditions are foisted on us, expect a lot of people to be taking it out there and making it known how they feel. So the protests, the rallies have dried up a bit over previous weeks and months, which is not hard to comprehend in the UK because the weather's been pretty shit. Not nice to be outside, but that is changing. It's getting to be really pleasant to be outside. And I'm expecting a whole load of people to be organising themselves in more of these protests and rallies for as long as it becomes necessary to do so, whatever the reaction of the hired mercenary thugs masquerading as the police may be. The first big one is going to be a World Freedom Day on Saturday, 20th of March. And this is not just something that's limited to the UK. This is happening in a whole load of nations. Let me just consult my trusty notes. At last count, the following nations were due to have major protests in the street on that same date in the capital cities. As well as England, there's Scotland, Ireland, Poland, Canada, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, the Netherlands, Finland, Serbia, Italy, Denmark, Latvia, Iceland, Israel, Sweden, Belgium and Ukraine. That's going to be a major powerhouse of pushback, of the people sending a very clear visual message to those looking on that there are vast numbers of us now that can see what is happening, and we don't take kindly to the removal of our rights and freedoms against our will. We do not consent. It's going to be a whole spring and summer of this, but it all starts on Saturday the 20th of March. I do know there's a big one happening in London. I don't know the location of it, but that will become clear in due course. And there is a Facebook page for this movement. It's right there, facebook.com/worldwide demonstration. So if you want to get more information about where one of these may be happening close to you, check out that Facebook group. I'll put the details in the note below. Along similar lines, although less assertive, we might say, is a movement known as a stand in the park. And this was evidently pioneered by a guy called Brady in Australia back sometime in 2020, where he just had the idea of every Sunday morning assembling a small group of like-minded people, same place, same time, every week, to do a bit of networking, bit of fellowship, bit of friendship, bit of camaraderie, and also to just take a stand against the tyranny. And the idea has spread, initially from its roots in a park in Sydney with just a small cluster of people. I hear that now hundreds, if not thousands, are gathering all over Australia. And the very same idea has been taken to other nations as well. In the UK, my good friend Sophia has organised a stand in the park in St Albans, close to her, and that has seemingly taken off. And now there are other ones happening around the UK as well. So far, these are the locations where you can get one of these stand in the park events. In Cornwall, Boscawen Park in Truro. In Essex, Coalhouse Fort Park in East Tilbury. Hertfordshire, Verulamium Park in St Albans by the lake. In Cheshire, it's Victoria Park in Widnes and also West Park in Macclesfield. In Devon, Rock Park in Barnstaple. In Bedfordshire, Russell Park in Bedford. And in Wales, it's Merthyr Tydfil at Cyfarthur Castle Park. So all these meetups happen between 10 and 11 every Sunday. People are being encouraged to wear yellow to indicate that they're a part of that group. Anyone can turn up. The idea is that you get together and compare notes and, support each other, but also formulate some plans for action and get some ideas for effective methods of resistance in place. And the good thing about it is, if the worst should happen and the grid should ever go down, or just the internet should go down, or you find yourself unable to communicate with other people via means that we've always taken for granted, such as mobile phones, texting, use of WhatsApp or FaceTime or whatever it is. If any of that should go, then you know that there are always going to be like-minded people in that park at that time between 10 and 11 on a Sunday. And if through no other means you're going to be able to link with them by turning up and speaking to each other in person, what a revolutionary act that is, face-to-face contact. So that idea really has some value, and anyone that wants to start up one of these stands in the park is free to do it, of course, in their own area. All they've got to do is select a location, get the word out, turn up there themselves to get the ball rolling on a Sunday at 10 a.m, and this whole idea could really take off, and that could really have some value as well. Something else I wanted to mention is some correspondence that I got from a person who said that they had some inside information that they wanted to share with me on a whistleblower basis. Now, this communication was very covert, it was very under the radar, but the individual in person wanted me to mention the word guerrilla, and that was going to serve as an indicator to them watching the video that I'd received their communication, and that I'm happy to hear from them further in terms of the information they wanted to share. So there it is, right there, guerrilla. Let there be no uncertain terms about that. So if this person is watching and they want to get in touch with me with that information, probably the most effective and, dare I say, safest way is to send the information to me via my Proton Mail email address. So by all accounts, Proton Mail is as secure as email communications get, more so than Gmail and the like. So I'll put my Proton Mail address in the show notes below, and if this person wants to reach me further via that account, they are welcome to do that. What else did I want to mention? Bear with me while I consult the notes. I did want to mention some shows that I've done this week. So I've been interviewed by Jo Dalton of Dublin South FM, and also Karen Lenihan for her podcast, brand new podcast she's got up and running. Couple of really good conversations that I had. It was real talk, no holds barred, things said that needed to be said, and I was pretty happy with how both of those turned out. So they're going to be on their respective platforms, Jo Dalton of Dublin South FM in Ireland and Karen Lenihan here in England. But also, as soon as I get access to those interviews, I'll post them on my platforms, so you can expect to see those on the YouTube and the BitChute. And, of course, via djmarkdevlin.com, which remains my one-stop shop portal, and a link to all of my work. You can access all the podcasts, all the videos, all the old radio shows, all the old interviews, and even some DJ audio from back in the day. Imagine that. From when I used to be a DJ. Feels like about 5 different lifetimes ago now, but before all this truth malarkey, I was actually a DJ, enjoying life, enjoying music. Imagine that. So all of that is accessible via djmarkdevlin.com. I posted up a new installment of my Sound of Freedom Conscious Music podcast this week, and I made the observation that even though I get a lot of appreciation for my speech-based output, whether it be my Good Vibrations podcast interviews or these video updates that I do, and it's very gratifying to get the positive response that I do to all of that. I really feel that not enough people are up on my music output. Maybe some don't even realise that I have music-based output. But as well as the Sound of Now show that I put out each Saturday on Spreaker and Mixcloud, and this is a 2-hour showcase of soulful, uplifting house music, which is the only style of music that I can consistently stand to listen to anymore. I do find it inspirational. I do find it very therapeutic to dig out 2 hours of this stuff every week. And I really hope that others will find the same value in that music, particularly if you've never given the time of day to soulful house before. You might find that the messages and the frequencies and the overall vibe of the stuff that I showcase every week really speaks to you in the same way that it speaks to me. So that's the Sound of Now, and the full archives to that are accessible on my Spreaker page and my Mixcloud, but also via djmarkdevlin.com. But the other music-based show that I do is called The Sound of Freedom, not to be confused with The Sound of Now, not to be confused with the new movie forthcoming, the documentary on the horrific subject of child sex trafficking. That's called Sound of Freedom. That's evidently due for release very soon. But I've been using the title The Sound of Freedom for the past 9 years now. And this is my conscious music podcast where I bring together a whole load of meaningful message music. And it's both from artists you're going to know, household names, who have put out songs that really speak to me and have really resonated with me and that I want to share with other people, but also DJs, musicians, producers, songwriters who you're not going to know, unfamiliar names, who are nevertheless putting out great music that really has something to say in these times. So I'm very proud of the track record of this show so far. I'm up to 103 volumes. If you've never heard The Sound of Freedom before, there'll be a link to the latest show in the notes below, and you can access the entire archive via djmarkdevlin.com again. And I'm in the process very shortly, as soon as I get the time, at this rate by about 2039, of uploading the entire 103 episode archive to my page on the onegreatworknetwork.com site. So One Great Work Network is the new alternative media platform coming from Mark Passio of whatonearthishappening.com. Lots of great content creators on there. All the material is to do with true rights, freedom, natural law, and all kinds of related subjects. So I've got my page on the One Great Work Network where a lot of this stuff gets duplicated. What else did I want to talk about? Was there anything else? Well, yes, there was. A couple of things. The You Resist portal. Now, I've mentioned this a couple of times. It's an alternative platform to Facebook and other controlled tech media giant outlets. This one is entirely independent. It's run by a good friend of mine, Mark, and there's a forum on there which offers an opportunity for like-minded individuals, people that watch these videos, for example, to communicate with each other, compare notes, arrange things, organise resistance, that kind of thing. That's why it's called You Resist. So if anyone is interested in getting on that kind of platform, which isn't controlled, which isn't suppressed, which isn't censored or monitored in any way, as these bigger, better-known names clearly are, then you might want to consider giving You Resist a go. Get involved in the forum, get involved in some of the chat threads on there. I'll put the details for You Resist down below. I'm on there, not as often as I should be, but it's a great way for us all to continue to connect, particularly if all these others should one day disappear, as is possible. The only other thing to mention is to recap on the offer that I mentioned in a video of a few weeks ago coming out of Touchstone Essentials. You might remember I did a video interview with Eddie Stone, the CEO of Touchstone Essentials. It's all about alternative and natural health products. And in particular, Eddie was talking about the Zeolite Spray that his company does. He's based out there in America, but Touchstone does have a UK subsidiary just outside London, and they ship all their products from there. So we did speak about the Zeolite Spray, which helps to detox the body from heavy metals and other impurities that we ingest unwittingly as part of our daily lifestyles, the world in which we live. A few other helpful products coming out of Touchstone as well. I've found the super greens particularly useful. So this is dried greens and various herbs and various extracts like wheatgrass and good stuff like that. And it comes in a very convenient format, powdered, where you just mix it with filtered water or mineral water and you just gulp the whole lot down. It enables you to ingest a whole load of greens that you would never normally be able to consume. The amount of spinach that you're able to get in one glass of this stuff. If you put it on a plate, it would be a huge mountain of the stuff that you would never reasonably eat. But in this format, very, very convenient. Certainly is for me with my busy lifestyle. Sorry to sound like a commercial. I don't really go in for ads. It's not my style. But this is a personal endorsement of something that I've found useful. I sound like Charlie Ward with his gold now, don't I? But yeah, this is the Super Greens coming out of Touchstone Essentials. Now, after that interview with Eddie, that company set up a page for me as a kind of agent of theirs, whereby if anyone wants to go through my own personal page on their website, they get access to certain discounts and certain offers which aren't readily available should you go through the main part of the site. So I'll put the link to that in the notes below as well. That's my own personal page as part of Touchstone Essentials, where you can get a whole load of these natural health products and access to all kinds of promotional offers. That continues to be run throughout the year. That being said, I think that is all I needed to get through this time around. Lord knows it's been enough. And the next time I've got something to share with you, I'll be straight back on here. I hope many of these messages today have resonated. Thanks, as ever, for the ongoing support and dedication of many people that tell me they find value in my output. It's very gratifying to know that my material is having some kind of service out there in that regard. Thanks again for all the support, and I'll catch you next time.